6 sinister friendships exposed. Spine-chilling tales of cursed bonds and hidden dangers revealed. The night air crackled with tension as Mark, Lisa, Todd, Sarah, and Ben huddled close around the flickering fire pit, their laughter mingling with the sizzle of the flames, only to be swallowed by the darkness surrounding Ben's old family home. Shadows loomed off the trees, curling closer to their warm glow. The rustic charm of the two-story house felt simultaneously inviting and haunting, the old wood creaking warnings from the past. "Remember the time we snuck into the abandoned church?" Todd mused, eyes glinting with mischief, but the mirth faded fast. Lisa's gaze darted toward the tree-line, a chill creeping down her spine. She leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "What if I told you there's an urban legend about cursed friendships?" A hush fell over them. "The cursed bonds," she continued. "They say friendships born from mischief can lead to betrayal and madness. If you leave secrets buried, they'll rise again." Laughter turned uneasy, their minds racing. Fear edged in like an intruder, tightening their bonds with an invisible grip. Suddenly, the fire snapped, sparking a memory that clawed at the surface of their minds. Mark shifted uncomfortably on his log, the tension palpable. "Hey, it's just a story, right?" He shrugged, but the deflection only added layers to the heaviness in the air. Every crackle ignited memories that twisted into something grotesque. Todd stirred uneasily, dropping his gaze to the ground. Vivid nightmares had dragged him awake last night, where familiar faces turned accusatory, blurred by shadows. Mark scanned the woods, a flicker of movement. Something watching them, lurking just out of sight. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her gaze darting toward the shadows with a pricking sensation along her neck. Like something moved. Before the group could dissect the dread creeping in, Ben let out a nervous chuckle. But his laughter couldn't obscure the thrill of terror curling in their guts. As they wrapped up their evening, Todd noticed a coolness wrapping around his heart, stifling laughter. "Let's just head inside," he suggested, trying to shake the dread. The next day, while cleaning up breakfast in the attic, they stumbled upon an old box of photographs, evidence of a forgotten party. As they flipped through silly faces, laughter echoed, but tragedy clawed their hearts when they found a picture someone they used to know, missing for years. Memories flooded back of that last fight, the tension rising, leaving a ghost of intimacy. Uncomfortable silence spread like a shadow among them. The walls felt thicker as night returned with the weight of unspoken fears. They gathered again, unease radiating from hollow laughter, like puppets on a fraying string. "Mark, what were you hiding?" Lisa's voice was tight as she broke the fragile comfort. Mark's defensiveness hung in the air, thick and suffocating, but a snap echoed through the woods, alarming them all. "What was that?" Ben exclaimed, scanning the darkness. The fire flickered ominously. Just as disbelief swallowed them, Ben stood abruptly. The door creaked, unexpectedly ajar. "Where's Todd?" Panic wormed into their hearts. They shouted his name, a chilling echo that returned empty. Each second felt like an hour. The dark corners of the yard swallowed their words. What they couldn't see was Todd, stumbling onto something nightmarish, a truth buried beneath their cherished memories, waiting to claw its way out. He knew it was more than a legend. The friendship they celebrated was stained with an unseen horror, and with every second, their nights grew longer and more sinister. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The darkness closed in around them, whispering secrets meant to stay buried. Were they still friends, or had the curse of their bonds finally come to claim them? The night unfurled its claws, questing for blood, betrayal, and ghosts of laughter now twisted into something grotesque. The wind howled through the trees, as if echoing the dread that settled like a stone in their stomachs. Each moment stretched, and the silence that enveloped them held a sinister weight. Ben shifted, glancing at Lisa, Sarah, and Mark, faces pale in the flickering light. "We need to find Todd," he urged, but his voice trembled, betraying the confidence he tried to project. Maybe he just wandered off, Sarah suggested weakly, fingers clenching around her arms. They all knew it was a lie. They could feel it, the pull of something unnatural in the air. Great time for a stroll, right? Mark retorted, sarcasm masking fear. His bravado wavered, and unease flickered behind his eyes. Shadows danced beyond the circle of warmth, flickering against the trees. Let us check the barn, Lisa suggested, her voice steady, but her body betrayed her, shaking slightly. The barn stood at the back of the property, dilapidated and cloaked in darkness. It loomed like a specter, and every step toward it felt like walking into a trap set by their very own nightmares. As they approached, the barn creaked eerily, the hinges of its old doors groaning as though protesting their intrusion. Ben pushed the door open, and the smell inside was thick and musty. It wrapped around them like an unwelcome embrace, and they hesitated, the threshold, a boundary they were apprehensive to cross. "Hello," Lisa called, her voice swallowed by the vast emptiness. No answer, only a thick, oppressive silence that weighed down on them. They stepped inside, the darkness dauntingly impenetrable. A flashlight beam pierced the blackness, cutting through the shadows. The beam danced along the barn walls, revealing remnants of old machinery and broken hay bales, but no sign of Todd. Panic was now a living creature, clawing at their insides. "You think he might have found something?" Mark suggested, his voice barely a whisper. Or someone. Sarah's breath came heavy, eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, a low growl reverberated in the darkness behind them. They froze, hearts pounding against their ribs. The growl deepened, echoing off the walls, sending ice down their spines. "Now, this is just great," Ben muttered, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. He edged backward but stumbled over a discarded tool, crashing into a stack of old crates. The sound tore through the silence like a blade, ramping up their dread. "Shoo," Lisa hissed, fear overtaking her. They listened, breaths held tight, ears straining against the clashing sounds of their hearts and the darkness. Then, a gasp, a strangled voice hoarse from the shadows. "Help, that's Todd," Mark shouted, darting toward the sound, heart racing. Each step felt heavier, every inch threatening to unravel their sanity. They reached a small corner of the barn, where the shadows seemed thicker, denser, and there he was, Todd, slumped against the wall, wild-eyed and trembling. "What happened?" Ben asked, kneeling over him, but Todd shook his head. It was as if he couldn't comprehend the words, his eyes darting toward the shadows, drenched in fear. We have to go," Todd stammered, clawing at the ground as if trying to pull himself away from something unseen. "They're coming, they know." "Who knows?" Lisa demanded, voice cracking. She stepped closer, reaching for him, but he recoiled as if she were a serpent. Then, out of the darkness, something shifted. A figure, just at the edge of the flashlight's reach, both familiar and grotesque, hollow eyes reflecting the dim light, and a twisted grin spreading across a visage that once belonged to their long-lost friend. "Todd." Ben's voice barely broke the horror, but Todd's frantic gaze said more than any words could. The darkness tightened around them. The lines of their lives, their friendship began to blur. Had they summoned something they shouldn't have? Was the curse not just a story? As Todd's terror deepened, the barn creaked again, echoing the laughter twisting into madness. Were they pawns in a game of something darker than they could have ever imagined? Something, or someone, had come to claim them all. And the night closed in, wrapping around their fates like fog. What awaited them beyond that chilling grin? Their friendship might not survive the night. The barn felt alive, its shadows curling and twisting like snakes. Fear coursed through their veins. Ben cursed under his breath and took a step back, gripping Todd's shoulder, a lifeline in the chaos. "What did you see, man? Please, help us understand." Todd's breath came in jagged, frantic gasps. He stared wide-eyed at the figure lingering just beyond the flashlight's feeble glow. "It's not Todd, not anymore." His voice trembled as he pointed, a shaking hand directing their gaze. "You need to run." "You need to run? From what?" Mark's voice cracked, the tension snapping. But as if in answer, the figure began to move, stepping into the light with an unsettling grace. It was there, as close as they'd ever want something terrifying to be, and they could hear its whispers, an array of voices melting into one, echoing their deepest fears and regrets. "Help us, Todd," it said, The voice a jumbled mockery of their friend, yet distorted in a way that made their skin crawl. You came for us. Now join us. Lisa, heart hammering, took a half-step backward as the figure's grin widened, revealing teeth too sharp, too many. We have to go? She cried, the words bursting forth with desperate resolve. Is it alive? Sarah whispered, trembling, refusing to tear her gaze away from the horror before them. I saw what it can do, Todd choked out, his fingers curling into the dirt. It has our faces. The depth of terror in his eyes spoke volumes and sent their hearts racing faster. Ben turned, instinct kicking in. We can't stay here. Now. They stumbled out of the barn, breathless, colliding together in a mad scramble. The dark chased them, a predatory force that clung to their backs as they fled the sagging doors behind them. But as they raced toward the house, Todd lagged behind. Wait. You can't leave me. They want to let me go. He screamed, his voice soaked in panic. Ben spun around, pulling Todd into the fray, and in that moment, Sarah's scream sliced through the air like a jagged knife. Look, the shadows were not just shadows anymore. Shapes wriggled and elongated, forming grotesque figures with gnarled limbs reaching for them. Their features flickered, becoming indistinct, yet each face wore a twisted version of someone each friend had once loved or lost. It's a trap, Mark shouted, fear transforming his voice into something unrecognizable. They're toying with us. They rallied, their legs propelling them as the darkness clawed at their backs, whispering promises of despair. They sprinted towards the warmth of the house, desperately clinging to the hope that doors and walls would shield them from whatever darkness had taken root in their lives. Get inside, Lisa shouted, leading the charge. They burst through the door, slamming it shut behind them, heartbeats echoing in the stillness. The house smelled of stale air, but here it felt safer, a fragile barrier against the nightmare outside. Gasping, they pressed their backs against the door, hearts thundering. The weight of their reality settled heavy in the room. What just happened? Todd's voice cracked, still shaking. Did we really see that? Mark gasped. Or was it just a trick? No, it was real. Todd insisted, trembling like a leaf. They are real. They want us, all of us. As if mirroring his words, a low, echoing laughter rattled the house. It flowed through their bodies like ice water, paralyzing them. This presence, so close yet intangible, surrounded them like a thick fog. Suddenly, the windows exploded inward, shattered shards raining down like a deadly shower. And with them came shadows, bitter cold and alive, flooding the space and dragging their souls into the darkness. In that moment, they understood. The darkness wasn't just outside, they had invited it in. Amidst the chaos, Todd's voice cut through the din, one word filled with terror echoing in the depths of their hearts. Run. But this time, where would they run? And would the escape even mean survival? As shadows flickered and whispers sharpened, they stood on the brink of a fate none dared to contemplate. What if they were wrong? What if the escape only awakened something worse? The laughter twisted and coiled around them, a sinister melody that stretched across the room like a creeping vine. Shadows danced in the corners, pooling into dark depths that seemed to breathe and pulse with a life of their own. Panic surged anew through their veins, igniting flight instincts as they pushed away from the door and stumbled deeper into the house. What do we do? Lisa cried. Her voice broke as she scanned the suffocating darkness for any sign of escape, fervently wishing for an exit. I don't know. Ben stuttered, his eyes darting. We need a weapon, something to defend ourselves. Todd fell to his knees, clutching his head. They want to let us leave, they're everywhere. His stare, wild and frenzied, turned toward the floor as if he could see the entity's writhing form beneath the boards. Stop. We can't give up, Sarah shouted, though her voice wavered, the weight of dread piling on her shoulders. We have to think. Just then, there was a soft creak from the old wooden staircase leading up. An unnatural chill swept through the air, slithering under their skin. As if drawn by an unseen force, their eyes turned to the dimly lit stairs. The shadows swirled and thickened, forming into something humanoid at the top. Come play with us. The voice that floated down was light and taunting, yet it dripped with malice, weaving around them like a predator-esque trap. Each syllable echoed like thunder in their ears, the harmonies shifting and splintering. Get away from there, Ben yelled, but it was futile. The figure swayed with a captivating grace, beckoning them softly, taunting their very essence. Each breath felt heavier, a thick fog of dread suffocating their resolve. If we split up, we might confuse them, Mark suggested, already backing toward the adjoining room. No, we stick together, Lisa countered immediately, clutching onto Mark's arm with desperation. We don't know what's out there or how many of them there are. But Todd, broken and trembling, whispered, It'll never end. They want us to fight. They feed on our fear. With cold realization, they continued to watch as the figure melded with the shadows, slipping in and out of sight like smoke. The space around them closed in, and they instinctively huddled together, whispers of despair curling into their ears, echoing the secrets and insecurities they had tried to bury. What is happening? Sarah's voice wavered, eyes wide with terror as a shadow flitted past her, a flash of a face she recognized, but knew to be twisted in pain. Is that Mom? No. Todd collapsed, driving his fists into the floor in frustration. Don't listen to it. It's a lie, a cruel trick. Suddenly, the lights flickered, stuttered, and dove into darkness. With a loud crash, the front door burst open as if inviting the agony to pour back into their lives. Shapes flooded inside, and with their arrival, the walls echoed with their ancient cries, a cacophony of guilt and betrayal filling every crevice. Despite the panic rising like bile, Ben gripped Todd's shoulder. We're not leaving you behind. No, Todd's voice strained under the weight of despair. You don't understand. I have to end this. And what? Lisa shouted, stricken by the realization sinking in. What do you mean? I'm the anchor. I'm their link. They'll kill you if you don't. The shadows twisted around him, dark whispers wrapping tighter and tighter. No. Mark pulled at him, desperate not to lose Todd to the darkness. The screams rose, the horrific chorus blending into one relentless sound as Todd writhed. In one swift motion, he disappeared into the shadows, swallowed whole. Silence fell heavy like a blanket, the remaining friends frozen in horror. Then the whispers intensified. Join us, Todd. Terror gripped their hearts. Before they could react, the shadows surged forward, reaching for them with elongated fingers, seeking to tear apart their sanity. They needed a decision. Now, do they stand and fight the relentless darkness or dive into its depths together? The voices grew louder, insistent. Join us, it will be easier this way. What if there was no escape? Could they face their own fears, or would they fall into the same darkness that had consumed Todd? As the first tendrils of shadow touched their faces, freezing them where they stood, realization hit hard. There was no safety left. Only the deepening void. How could they confront the truth when every spark of hope melted away and the promise of salvation began to fade? Would they succumb willingly, or would they find the strength to fight? The whispers beckoned, and the shadows loomed ever closer. They were frozen, each heartbeat a drum echoing in their ears as the shadows twisted around them, reaching with desperate fingers. The air thickened, suffocating them, and Lisa's chest felt tight, as if the very jarring whispers aimed to crush her spirit. Fight! Lisa screamed suddenly, tossing aside her fear. We fight back. We won't let them take us. Mark shook his head, disbelief flashing in his eyes. What are we supposed to do? We're outnumbered. We don't even know what they want. An unearthly growl rumbled through the room, intensifying the already palpable dread. The darkness writhed angrily, as if it understood their defiance and sought to smother it. Then, with a violent surge, vibrant flashes of color exploded from the shadows, illuminating eerie faces contorted in horrors past. Sarah gasped as one of the figures stepped closer, its crumpled visage hauntingly familiar. No, it can't be. The air grew dense with despair as memories clawed at her. Please just leave us alone. But the shadows roared back, unified and fierce, voices mingling to create an anguished symphony that wrapped around her mind. You are part of us now, forever. Ben's mind raced, a desperate plan flickering in the depths of panic. The basement. We need to get down there. Maybe it can hold them back. But Todd Mark's voice trembled, the thought of abandoning their friend paralyzing. Forget him. He made his choice, Ben spat, his eyes darting around, calculating every path, every escape that was now lost. We need to get out now? Gritting her teeth, Lisa nodded. Follow me. The sounds of murmurs spiraled around them, but they forged ahead, stepping as one, hearts hammering. Yet, as they reached the staircase, the air crackled with an unseen force, striking their skin like cold needles. The shadows shifted, a wall of darkness suddenly blocking their path. "Leave him," one hissed close to Sarah's ear, its breath a fetid whisper that dripped with malevolence. "Join us, stay with us. You won't succeed without him, Lisa yelled, but her voice wavered, and the shadows seemed to pulse with delight at her uncertainty. They had no face, yet their cruel satisfaction filled the space, wrapping around her that a flicker of a plan ignited in Mark's mind. "We have to find something. If we can hold them off with light lanterns, anything." He bolted toward a dusty corner where an old lantern sat, dim but still flickering with potential. "Help me," he cried. Ben and Sarah moved quickly, scrambling to pick it up while shadows slithered closer, slapping against their legs like 1,000 icy claws. They lit the lantern with trembling hands. The light burst forth, casting back the encroaching darkness, but it was a weak barrier. The shadows screamed in fury, snapping back momentarily as if the light burnt. But the glow of the lantern was feeble, fading fast. Lisa's heart raced as she glanced back at the figures forming again, their shapes lurking ever closer, whispering twisted memories of their past. Suddenly, a voice boomed, echoing around them. "You cannot escape, for guilt fills your hearts and binds you here." "No, no," Lisa protested, squeezing her eyes shut to block out the voices filled with regret and blame. But within her mind, images poured in, moments they wished to erase, frail memories now twisted into weapons meant to shatter them. Mark's face darkened with realization. "It's true, it was us. We brought this upon ourselves," he breathed, the weight of truth crushing down on him. "No," Sarah argued fiercely. "We didn't do anything. This isn't our fault. We have to confront it." Ben yelled, swinging the lantern as the light flickered erratically. "We can't hide from what we've done." Before they could reshape their new resolve, the shadows lunged. The air thickened, coated in desperation and fear, tightening like a noose. "Be ours forever," they roared, a tempest of malice surging forward. But Lisa, driven by the flickering light and the remnants of hope, took a step forward. "Stop. You don't own us. We can fight, and we will resist." The shadows halted, a sudden pause filled with menacing tension, waiting, swirling with doubt like a storm ready to burst. It was a moment, a heartbeat. Would their defiance shatter the grip of despair, or would they be consumed by the shadows once and for all? As the light flickered one last time, desperation rushed through them. They had to make a choice. They could stand and confront their horrors, or let the darkness engulf them, heart and soul. Would they take the plunge into the unknown, or would fear seal their fates? The shadows breached forward with hungry intent. The moment hung suspended, fraught with tension, hearts racing as the shadows lunged. Lisa could feel the warmth of the lantern fading her last bastion against the encroaching darkness. It was like a countdown ticking down to some terrible end. "Get back. Keep the light steady," Mark shouted, clutching the lantern tightly. The shadows writhed, their edges curling like smoke against the flickering flame. The air turned frigid, stinging their skin as the menacing figures crept closer, hunger radiating from every ghastly face. But in that moment, Lisa felt a surge within her. "Together, light and truth," she shouted, urging her friends closer. She needed them to believe in the strength of their bond. It was all they had left. Ben gripped the lantern alongside Mark. "We hold the shadows at bay," he declared, trying to inject a sense of purpose into their trembling limbs. "Is that all you want?" Sarah challenged the shadows, her voice fierce but quaking. "You want us to suffer because of our past? We are more than that." The shadows recoiled slightly, a ripple of confusion forcing them back. For a heartbeat, the darkness seemed hesitant. Maybe they could turn the tide. "Do you feel that?" Lisa gasped. There was a flicker of something, a spark of hope shimmering through the oppressive dread. "It's the light. It's working. Just hold on." As if answering her call, the lantern flared, expanding with a brighter glow. The shadows hissed, a chaotic symphony of rage and longing. But just then, a cold gust swept through the room, snuffing the light momentarily, leaving only a sliver to pierce the void. "Fight it. Remember why we're here," Mark insisted, and despite the intensity of the darkness, he pushed forward. The shadows twisted in protest, shrieking in agony, their wails harrowing like banshees. The figures began to waver, their shapes imperfect against the flickering flame. "We need to expose their lies," Ben urged, voice trembling but resolute. "Our regrets are not chains, they're lessons." The shadows dimmed, simmering in uncertainty. They closed in again, but there was a flicker in their form, a crack in the malevolence encasing them. Lisa's heart thundered as she reached deep within, the quiet courage rising up in her chest as she shouted, "We choose to remember, to forgive." The shadows recoiled, as if struck. A flicker of recognition danced across their twisted faces. For a brief moment, she thought she saw Todd among them, their friend, lost, but not forgotten. "Let him go," Sarah screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. "You can't keep him trapped in this darkness. He deserves better." The shadows shuddered, the rage in their cries turning to desperation. Lisa dared to step forward again, emboldened. "We aren't defined by our past. You're not going to take us with you." With each word, the lantern pulsed, casting back the darkness a little further. The menacing whispers grew frantic, almost pleading. They twisted, forming a vortex of blackness that churned in place, stuck between two worlds. And then, the shadows disintegrated, spiraling away like smoke in the chill air. One figure lingered last, the familiar face of Todd, sorrow etched in his features. "Lisa," he murmured, voice quaking with both longing and grief. His eyes shimmered with memories, but darkness behind them clutched with ferocity, pulling him back. "Hold on, Todd." She reached out, afraid yet defiant, the flickering lantern illuminating their bond. But as her fingers stretched toward him, the shadows surged again, clawing back with brutal force, and the space between them began to close in the frantic chaos. The light from the lantern flickered perilously low, threatening to snuff out entirely. Ben clutched it tighter, sensing the shift. What if he can't come back? He breathed, fear gripping him. A pulse of dark wind rushed past, causing the lantern's flame to sputter violently, each gust a reminder of what they were up against. Shadows twisted around Lisa, eerily pulling at her essence, as cold fingers tugged at her resolve. And then, without warning, the basement door slammed shut with a thunderous crash, echoing through the haunted air. "Run!" Mark shouted. But the darkness was not done. There was a low growl, a rumbling beneath their feet, as the shadows coalesced into something more monstrous, a creature born out of guilt and fear. The light flickered again, a last desperate gasp as the creature lunged forward, a storm of shadows and despair. Would they have enough light to hold back the darkness that was once more intent on consuming them? Time froze as they faced the darkest moment of their lives. In that brief stillness, with no escape in sight, they all knew whatever came next would change everything. What hideous truth awaited them in the depths of the shadows, threatening to unravel their very souls? The creature surged forward, a monstrous shape woven from the pulsating essence of shadow. Its eyes blazed like coals, unyielding and predatory. Panic gripped Lisa's chest as she instinctively stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. The basement grew tighter, more suffocating, like a vice closing in around them. "Keep it steady," Mark shouted again, his voice barely piercing the chaos. The lantern had dimmed, sputtering in Ben's hands like a dying heartbeat. "We need to find its weakness." Their breaths came fast, shallow, the weight of dread pressing down upon them. Lisa's heart raced. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the edge of the table behind her. "It's the past," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "It feeds on our fears, our regrets." The creature lunged, shadows swirling and snapping, eager to take hold of them. Time split, a jarring reminder of their moments together and the threads of remorse that strung them like puppets, dancing to dark melodies. "Remember what you said, Lisa," Ben shouted. "Light and truth." He stepped into the fray, positioning himself as a shield. "We are not our mistakes." The shadows recoiled for an instant, the creature's form flickering as if caught in an unseen storm. "You think you can fight me? You are merely a reflection of your failures." It roared, the voice echoing, a cacophony of their past failures. Lisa felt the cold seep deeper, threatening to smother her spirit. She looked at Todd, his face still etched with grief, becoming a ghost of her memories, pulling at her heart like barbed wire. "No," she declared. "We will not become what you want us to be." With a surge of courage, Lisa grabbed the lantern from Ben's hands, their fingers brushing briefly. She raised it high, the flame flickering defiantly against the dark maw of the creature. Their fears felt tangible now, swirling around her in spectral forms, distortions of truth feeding off regret. "Together," she yelled, the words booming in the cacophony of despair. "Remember our good. Remember our strength." The lantern surged in brightness, casting vibrant light across the room. Shadows pulled back, twisting as if scorched. They writhed and howled, but something changed, clearness beginning to seep into their madness. The hints of faces emerged from within the shadows, memories crystallizing like portraits reaching for salvation. "Todd," Sarah cried out, her voice breaking amidst a wave of emotions. "Let him go. He has fought enough." As if answering her call, the shadows around Todd shrank, pulling back, revealing the loss that was slowly fading from the reflections of their collective sorrow. The lantern did not waver, fueled by their united resolve. "Do you want him?" The creature roared in defiance, but the flickering flame shone brighter with each note of their cries. "He belongs to me." "No," Lisa shouted, stepping forward to stand beside Sarah. "He belongs to us. Our friendship is not lost, it remains in the light. You can't have him." The ground trembled beneath them, the air crackling with tension. The creature screamed a sound that reverberated through their bones, releasing pent-up fears into the ether. In its rage, it lunged, a mass of darkness hurtling toward them. "Hold on," Mark yelled, taking a deep breath and channeling everything he could into the lantern as he pushed forward. For a moment, the light flared, expanding outward like a protective barrier, illuminating the terrible visages of their regret, each one dissipating under its warmth. But darkness was relentless. It seeped in as the creature dove through the light, a vile entity bent on devouring them whole. Lisa felt her world spiral, caught between the shadowy figure of the past and glimmers of hope. But then, with just one shift of the lantern's glow, they saw it, a glimmering doorway barely visible, nestled at the edge of a fading shadow. Hope ignited instinctively in her gut. It seemed to beckon them, half-swathed in the thickening darkness. "Follow me," she shouted, daring to believe in the fragile string of hope anchored deep within them. As they began to move, the shadows shrieked, the air crackling with furious energy as the creature coiled behind them, more enraged than ever. Would they reach the doorway before the darkness swallowed them whole? The chase began. They ran as fast as they could, the weight of terror pushing at their backs like a tidal wave of darkness, hungry to consume them. The lantern flickered wildly in Lisa's grip, its flame dancing defiantly against the undulating shadows, but she could feel it weakening, sputtering like a dying star. "Keep up," Mark shouted, his voice strained, desperation weaving through the words. They turned a corner in the basement, the walls breathing in and out with each pounding heartbeat reverberating through the air, suffocating them. Lisa's throat tightened. Each footstep echoed like a countdown to doom. She could feel the creature's wrath thrumming behind them, its low growl vibrating through the very ground they sprinted on. It was relentless, a predator in its hunting ground, and they were the desperate prey. Ben's face glistened with sweat, his breathing ragged. "Where are we going?" he gasped. "Anywhere but here," Sarah cried, her eyes wide with fear as they rounded another corner. "We need to find the exit." The glimmering doorway was now a blur in Lisa's mind, overshadowed by the suffocating dread that churned within her. She fought to cling to the image of it, a fragile light beckoning through the darkness. It felt impossibly close, yet painfully out of reach. Mark caught a glimpse of something swirling at the periphery, shapes of their own making flaring to life in the shadows. They were figures from their past, long-buried regrets manifesting as twisted memories, clawing and grasping for release. Lisa recognized them, faces distorted by guilt and sorrow. Friends lost, mistakes seared into her consciousness, all of it surged into view, hungry to latch onto her spirit and drag her back into despair. "Not now," she cried, shaking her head violently, trying to push them away. "We are stronger than this. We can't give in." With each word, the lantern brightened again, revitalizing their hope. The creature registered their defiance, roaring with fury, its form thrashing violently, shadows elongating and stretching as if reaching for their very souls. They stumbled into a larger room, the cold stone walls absorbing their frantic energy. It felt different here, more expansive, but also more ominous. The shadows pulsated, gathering like a storm cloud ready to unleash terror. "They're closer," Ben yelled, his eyes darting, wild with panic. "Look," Mark pointed, a flicker of determination sparking in his features. "That wall, there's something there." Lisa squinted through the enveloping darkness. A mural sprawled across the cold, damp surface, pictures intertwining with one another, entire scenes of friendship interlaced with tragedy. Stories of bonds broken and curses hidden within. Laughter echoed eerily, peeling the skin off intimacy, revealing their raw, bloodied hearts beneath. "Those look like us," Sarah whispered, her voice hollow as she stepped closer, entranced by the images. Faces twisted in joy slowly morphed into despair, their laughter faded into screams. "Get back," Lisa shouted, pulling Sarah away. "This is a trap." The shadows surged forward, greedy for her words, as the tangible anxiety squeezed around them. The creature hissed, its unearthly growl resonating, mingling with the terrified murmurs of those depicted in the mural. They clawed at the fabric of reality, only inches from breaking through. "Stay focused," Mark yelled, pushing against the weight of their memories. "The door, it has to be here." Just as Lisa turned back to the remaining sliver of light, a vile scream erupted from the depths of the creature. It blurred into a torrent of despair, lunging at them once more, a wave of darkness threatening to engulf everything they were fighting for. "Now," she shouted. The lantern erupted in a final flash of light, illuminating their path ahead. But the creature's piercing roar sliced through the air, drowning out their last shred of hope. Would they make it through the door? Or was this the moment they became nothing more than echoes of their past, swallowed by darkness forever? The walls began to close in as the shadows reached for them, thick and suffocating. The light flared, momentarily blinding them, casting grotesque shadows against the damp walls. Lisa shielded her eyes, heart racing, feeling like a ragged drum. "Run. Go." Mark's voice pierced through her haze, urging them forward with the last bit of adrenaline. They bolted into the newly illuminated space, the shadows recoiling, canines snapping at their heels. "Where's that door?" Ben shouted, breathless, his eyes darting. Somewhere, deep within the chaos, there was a flicker of steel. A door. Its handle glimmered with a metallic sheen beneath the stark light. Lisa's gaze locked onto it, her mind racing. Hope surged as they dashed toward it. But just as they reached the threshold, the light flickered ominously again, plummeting them into darkness. "No, not now," Sarah cried, her voice slicing through the encroaching gloom, tangled with despair. Before they could react, the horrid growl of the creature reverberated in the air, vibrations thrumming like a death knell. The walls seemed to absorb their dread, closing in tighter, squeezing the breath from their lungs. Its eyes, piercing, hungry, were mere inches from them. "Here." Mark yanked at the handle, his palms slick with sweat. It wouldn't budge, pain radiating through him as he pushed, pulled, begged it to give way. "Get it open," Lisa screamed, panic clawing at the edges of her sanity. "Please." They heard the scraping sound, nails against stone. The memories in the mural thrashed as if waking from a trance, now fully alive, whispering in cruel harmony. "Join us, join us." The faint echoes twisted into mournful wails. Sarah pressed her hands against her ears, trembling. "Make it stop. Make it stop." The growling creature surged forward, morphing shadows turning into a mass of terror. Lisa could sense it, a palpable tremor in the air, thick and wet, like the taste of blood on her tongue. It was closer now, almost within reach, spilling fear into their hearts. "Hold on," Mark yelled, bracing himself against the door while Lisa joined him, pushing with all her weight. With one final desperate heave, the door groaned, shuddering as it slowly cracked open. The narrow gap revealed a thin sliver of light, but behind them, the creature's breath came heavy, vile danger creeping closer. "Move," Mark urged, and together they shoved the door wider, enough to slip through. They stumbled into an adjacent corridor, their feet barely finding purchase on the slick ground. It felt different here, less claustrophobic. But that didn't quell the gnawing dread curling in Lisa's stomach. Every flicker of the lantern felt like an accusation, a reminder that darkness was stalking them still. The walls were scrawled with messages. Insane scribbles cried for help, desperate and chilling, adorned with crude sketches of faces twisted in suffering. Each one spoke of friendship turned betrayal, of bonds forged in fire and broken by chains of fear. Look at these. Ben's voice trembled, the lantern shaking in his grip. These were friends. Not friends, Lisa corrected, as a sense of foreboding swelled. Prisoners. The shadows slithered closer, seething with the anguish of those who had once laughed and loved, now reduced to memories clawing at the living. That a nearby door burst open, dark figures spilling into the corridor, obscured by flickering light, their faces blurred by rage. Run. We need to get out of here, Lisa screamed. But the walls echoed back, reverberating her fear into a cyclone of dread. As they sprinted back down the corridor, the murmurs intensified, their whispers pouring into her mind. They'll come for you too. A plummeting sensation gripped her, the weight of realization crashing down. They weren't just being hunted by the beast, they were also part of something larger, something sinister, vengeance simmering just beneath the surface. Where were they headed? Were they running towards salvation, or deeper into a nightmare made flesh? Suddenly, a hand shot through the shadows, grasping, pleading. It belonged to one of the faces from the mural, a friend twisted in torment. The eyes were filled with terror, and Lisa felt that cold dread wrapping around her heart. She froze, caught between helping and fleeing, every instinct screaming panic. The shadows stretched hungrily, flickering around her, demanding to know her choice. Just then, a deafening roar erupted, drowning out everything else. What twisted fate awaited them in the depths beyond? The roar reverberated through the air, a cacophony of rage and despair threatening to crush them under its weight. Lisa's heart raced as she tore her gaze from the tortured face extending from the shadows. She was frozen in place, anxiety flooding her senses. For a fleeting moment, she felt the pull to help, but the primal instinct to survive kicked in fiercely. Move, Ben shouted, grabbing her arm and propelling her forward. They stumbled deeper into the corridor, the flickering lantern casting erratic shadows that danced across the walls, draping them in a shroud of uncertainty. Every footfall echoed in the haunted silence, the weight of the past clawing at their heels. Time felt distorted, a warped cycle of memories and regrets swirling at their backs, hungry to reclaim them. But they had to push onward, toward whatever lay ahead. Mark pointed to an opening at the end of the hallway, a door glimmering with the promise of light. There, we have to reach it. They sprinted, adrenaline surging as the shadows crawled closer, whisking through the air like tendrils reaching for their very souls. Lisa could almost feel the cold breath of the creature behind them, its presence suffocating, clawing at her heart with icy fingers. Racing to the door, they flung it wide open and tumbled into what appeared to be an old attic, dust motes swirling in beams of moonlight that streamed through broken windows. The lantern flickered violently, fighting against the encroaching darkness. It's going to find us, Sarah exclaimed, her breaths coming in frantic bursts. The attic felt vast, but shadows swirled near the corners, threatening to curl into something sinister at any moment. We can't keep running. We need a plan. Ben panted, looking around for anything they could use. Lisa's eyes landed on an old trunk against the wall, half hidden beneath a tattered tarp. She rushed over and flung it open. Inside lay an array of old artifacts, relics of forgotten times. Dusty mirrors, tarnished silver, and look, she shouted, pulling out a couple of faded candles and a rusty lantern. Do they work? Mark asked, urgency etched in his features. Only one way to find out, she replied, her own resolve beginning to solidify. They lit the candles, their flames flickering nervously but standing stalwart against the shadows. Eyes scanning the room. Todd's face flared briefly in Lisa's mind. His tormented expression was now a haunting echo, bittersweet, yet resolute. They had to save him. We can use these to repel the darkness, she said, letting urgency fuel her words. But as if answering her call, the shadows surged, condensing into a swirling mass that blossomed menacingly at the foot of the trunk. Join us. It will be easier, Dear friends, they hissed, their voices a tangle of pain and cruelty. No, Lisa shouted defiantly, a fierce fire igniting within her. You don't own us. We want to be taken by shadows that feed on our past. Mark stepped beside her, holding the lantern high. Together, light and truth, he yelled, rallying their scattered courage. They positioned the newly lit candles, creating a makeshift circle of light around themselves, feeling braver as it fought against the encroaching darkness. Let us call on Todd, Sarah cried, her voice raw but emboldened with a collective purpose. He needs to be free. Todd, Lisa shouted into the chaos, her heart yearning for their lost friend. We want to leave you behind. Remember who we are. To their horror, the shadows hesitated, wavering at the sound of his name. The weight of shared memories rippled through the atmosphere, reverberating against the walls like an echo of forgotten laughter. Then, as if drawn by their resolve, Todd's voice broke through the dark, weak yet clear. I'm here. Fight, Todd. We're fighting for you. Mark urged, terror and desperation bleeding into his voice. From the swirling mass, a silhouette emerged struggling, desperate. Their friend was trapped in the shadows, remnants of the darkness clawing at him. It was a vivid tapestry of their joy and pain woven into a single moment. Todd, remember us. Remember who we are. Sarah cried, tears shimmering in her eyes. The lantern pulsed, illuminating the entire attic, blinding those lurking in shadows momentarily. You can't take him, Lisa exclaimed, holding her breath, hoping their bond could pierce the veil. Todd's figure flickered in and out as the darkness snarled with anger, trying to cable him back into despair. I want to give in, he shouted, clenching his fists as he fought his way forward. Stepping closer, Lisa felt the warmth of candles bolster her courage. We are stronger together, she declared, igniting unwavering conviction in her friends, and they stepped forward, bridging the gap between torment and friendship. The shadows screeched in unison, the cacophony an outright assault against their resolve. Join us, they howled, every flickering memory projected with horrifying clarity. No, they replied in unison, a chant born of desperation. We are not our past. We are not defined by regrets, but by how we stand together. Light and truth will always triumph. With every word, the lantern brightened, casting the shadows further and further back, pulling Todd into clarity. And then bursting like dawn breaking, Todd fell through the veil of the darkness, collapsing into the circle of light, gasping for air. I'm free, he exclaimed, joy flooding back into his voice as his friends rushed to embrace him, warmth of their unity enveloping them like a protective cloak. But even as they celebrated, the shadows writhed in fury, swirling ominously, refusing to yield completely. They formed a grotesque shape, a last surge of rage fueled by their desperation. They want to give up, Ben breathed, gripping Todd's shoulder tightly. We need to finish this. Ultimately, it was in that moment of crisis that Lisa found clarity. We are our friends. Our memories are strong, she declared fiercely. As Todd, Mark, Ben, and Sarah joined her, they reached for the lantern's flame, letting their collective memories of laughter, happiness, and love meld into it. The lantern flared brilliantly, a beacon that pierced the shadows, unfurling waves of warmth and light that sent ripples cascading out, engulfing the darkness around them. With a cry of sheer unity, they lifted it higher and higher, wild whispers of the past diminishing into the light, surrendering to the undeniable force of their bond. And in one glorious moment, the shadows shattered, dissipating like mist before the sun, swallowed by the warmth of hope. Breathless and trembling, they collapsed against one another, the oppressive weight of fear lifting. The attic lay bathed in the soft glow of flickering light, and in that fragile clarity, they all realized this was a rebirth, an escape not just from the darkness but from the chains of their past. We did it, Sarah whispered, her eyes welling with tears of relief. Todd smiled, that familiar spark returning. Together, we will always be together, he reassured. The bond between them solidified. With the shadows defeated, they stepped into a new dawn, the future bright with promise, the laughter of their friendship echoing through the halls of Ben's family home. They fought the darkness and emerged victorious not as victims, but as friends unyielding in the face of fear, forever changed yet beautifully united. But as they stepped outside, the cool night air wrapping around them, Lisa felt a fleeting chill run down her spine, a reminder that while they had escaped this darkness, the deepest shadows of the heart still whispered reminders of torment, of bonds that could twist into something sinister if left unchecked. They exchanged glances, their laughter echoing into the night, knowing they wouldn't let those whispers take hold again. And thus, they walked forward together towards the horizon, towards hope, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Now, here's where you come in. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now, because it feeds the algorithm and we can't keep creating without you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ride. And for real, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely must see this conclusion. Your support means the world, and together, we can continue creating these spine-chilling tales.